Hello.
Welcome. Hello, YouTube fans.
YouTube.
Let's give them a few more comic books to look at. Funsies.
Hello, hello.
And looks like we're live.
I believe we are live.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Comic Shop Talk Live. Brought to you by Black Cat Comics and Rock and Milpitas, your one-stop shop for all things superhero. Shop online at black-cat-comics.com. We're here to keep you connected to the comic book community. I'm Mark.
I'm Francie.
And today's topic is independent comics.
Independence.
Independence. Just in time for Independence Day, just like on Firefly. It's the 4th of July, and it's a great time to talk about independent comics. It's a great week to talk about independent comics, so we're going to dive all into that. But first, we always like to get the show started with Comic Shop News. Comic Shop News. Big news this week, and we're both in our July 4th red. That's pretty awesome. The big news this week is the announcement of Marvel's acquisition of the publishing rights to Alien and Predator. That is huge news, rocking comics, much like it did when they reacquired Star Wars and things like that. They recently reacquired Conan. So that's a big deal. A lot of speculation as to what that means. They've already made announcements and things.
What does that mean for the average reader?
We've been asking ourselves what that means to the AVP fans, what that means to Dark Horse Comics. What it means about a lot of things. Like I say, that's big news. Licensed comics are a big deal. AVP is a big deal. So yeah, like I say, I think there's a lot to that. I at least, and many of us knew and understood this was going to happen when Disney acquired 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
Being a Planet of the Apes fan,
Star Wars came back
that when they acquired Fox, that Disney would then acquire Planet of the Apes, Alien, and Predator. And so I've sort of been waiting for the announcement. Again, much like Star Wars, when Disney acquired Star Wars. And Dark Horse lost the comics, as soon as the contract was up. I've been waiting for that to happen with Planet of the Apes and AVP, and now here we are. So what?
AVP being aliens.
Alien versus Predator. That's the short term.
That are uninitiated.
It encapsulates both franchises, so you don't have to say Alien and Predator or whatever. I mean, they're obviously two of the biggest science fiction franchises there are. They have a long history of comics. I think it's really, we're talking about independent comics because Alien and Predator was a huge thing for Dark Horse. It's essentially what put Dark Horse on the map. Batman, that's indisputable. Batman versus Predator, that was 5 years before Sin City. So like Batman Predator was huge. All their Alien stuff, everything they did with Dark Horse Presents. Like I say, it's what got Dark Horse out there.
Boy, Dark Horse is having a rough year.
They are having a rough time. They lost Star Wars, and they lost Conan.
There's no more
Now they're losing Alien and Predator.
And there's some scandal.
There is some scandal, a lot of scandal going on. Yes. So speaking of independent comics, it's a tough time.
Hands to yourself, gentlemen. Hands to yourselves.
It's a tough time to be at Dark Horse Comics right now.
So I think they're basically being held up by Mike Mignola's shoulders right now.
Kind of have been for a long time, and like I say, losing Alien and Predator isn't going to help that much. So I know there's a lot of fans of those franchises out there. There's people that are going to be excited about it, people that aren't going to be excited about
it. Talking about crossovers, Daniel. Punisher versus Predator. That would be awesome.
Daniel, I loved your Guardians of the Galaxy Alien. That was even better than the Fantastic Four Alien thing that I came up with. I'm a Marvel guy. Everyone knows I'm a Marvel guy. So.
We've done Predator and Batman and stuff already.
Yes. And I'm going to talk about Archie Predator here in a little bit. But because they've done 2 Archie Predators, and the trade for the second one came out this week, and it's awesome.
Awesome sauce.
And now I've lost track of where I was going with that.
I totally interrupt. I do this all the time. I interrupt him, and it's like, whoop, it's gone.
I have like 17 trains of thought. I can always start another one. but we were
Crossovers.
talking about. Yes, I'm a big Marvel guy. I'm really excited about all of this coming
Show
to
me your
Marvel.
shoes.
These are my Captain America shoes, just in time for
They can't see it over
4th
there.
of July. These are my Captain America shoes, just in time for 4th of July.
Huge Marvel
So
fan.
I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about like Predator versus the Skrulls. I'm excited about the Kree eradicating Alien. I'm fascinated by Brood versus Alien because Brood is a total Alien knockoff. So right away my brain exploded and I'm super into it. And I want to see Hulk fight all of the guys. Having a chest burster
Reed
from
Richards.
all of that. That was my thing, was Alien FF, and I don't know, for me, like I say, I got really excited. But I totally understand the hardcore, fans of the franchises. They didn't want to see Alien and Predator crossover. They like, a universe is a universe, and stay in your lane. And there's something to be said for not wanting to see Wolverine in every freaking universe.
Can I take a side note for a second?
Sure.
So for those of you that love the paranormal, like myself, there's a show on History Channel, I think it's History Channel, called Skinwalker Ranch. And supposedly, big air quotes here, supposedly, there's actually a real, like, scary camouflage predator alien thing that roams that ranch and kills cattle and other wildlife there. And it's horrifying and fascinating at the same time. Can you just imagine for like a second that the predator is real?
If you spend any time in Arizona, you'll believe almost anything.
Crazy.
Crazy. That's just my general feeling.
Okay,
if you spend enough time in the desert, anything gets real.
You talk about predator, my mind goes straight there.
Well, and I think that's part of the fun. That's always been my thing with science fiction in general, is that good science fiction takes your brain in a million directions and takes you on great rides and all that great stuff. So I'm really intrigued. What they've already done with Conan, bringing Conan into like Savage Avengers and stuff, was really great. And so I'm excited about all this. And on a side note, they've already won. I always like to say Dark Horse has done a fantastic job with Alien and Predator, much like Star Wars. And this is the truth. And people dispute it now because it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. Dark Horse saved Star Wars. In 1989, Star Wars was not a thing. Dark Empire, the Dark Horse comics, Dark Empire saved Star Wars and kept Star Wars alive in that interim of time between there was popularity and then it died, and then he re-released the movies, the originals in the theaters, and it became a thing again. But in 1989, nobody cared until he made Dark Empire, and then Star Wars was a thing again. And I believe. And that's totally true with Alien and Predator. Alien and Predator would have died 10, 20 years ago if Dark Horse hadn't kept all these lines out, hadn't kept the fans alive, kept the fans intrigued. You give the fans new material. There would not be a franchise worth acquiring if Dark Horse hadn't done an excellent job with the license. Yeah. So I like to give them props on that. Secondarily, and I go to the Planet of the Apes thing now, though there have been since Batman and Predator and all this. I've been talking about what a great era of mashups we're in. And they've done Star Trek Planet of the Apes, and they did Green Lantern Planet of the Apes. And I think Planet of the Apes is the easiest thing in the universe to cross over, because the whole thing is about a portal where people pop through and end up on the Planet of the Apes. And anything from ever can pop through that portal. So bringing that into the Marvel Universe is a ton of fun. Like I say, I love the idea of inter-universe mashups, and so I'm all for this from my end. Like I say, I understand there's purists who are going to feel differently.
What's up, Jay?
Again, it's a totally interactive program, so throw your Alien and Predator thoughts out there. But again, Marvel taking all that stuff over is a big deal.
Happy 4th, SC.
Happy 4th, SC. Which brings us to this week's comics. Again, I always like to open the show, whether we have a guest or whether we have a topic, whatever it is. I always like to talk about this week's comics, because we're a this week's comics kind of shop. Yeah. And it's a great week to talk about independent comics, because there was just about nothing from Marvel or DC this week.
Independence. I actually only had a couple of comics. It was a tiny week. There was only like what, like maybe 20 books that came out or something this week?
Yes.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Very, very small. So, but I did have a couple. So you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, but the Storytellers, Jim Henson books, I love these books so much. They're so much fun. So Jim Henson did I think it was a TV show first a while ago that you can probably still find on Netflix. And it was by Hurt. What's the guy's name? John Hurt. Anyway.
William Hurt?
No, I don't think so. Anyway, so he did this TV show with a Muppet dog, and they talked about different tales, different, mythologies, and it's not stuff that you would have heard of, like Zeus. It's like these kind of obscure mythos from all different cultures, all different parts of the world. It was a really, really great show. I highly recommend it if you guys can get your hands on it. So they kind of spun it off into a comic series. So over the last couple years, they've done mini 4-shots all on one particular theme. So this current theme is Storyteller Ghosts. So each of the comics in the 4-shot is has the theme of ghosts. But what's cool about these books is every single one is a standalone. They're all independent stories. Sometimes it's a completely different writer and creator. Most of the time it's a writer creator. It's one person that's doing the whole book to themselves. And they're varied storytelling, art, all of it's really great. All of it along a horror theme, which I love. So they've had ghosts, they've had sirens, they've had giants, they've had mermaids, they've had fairies and witches. So if you haven't checked it out, do. It's definitely worth it. It's good times.
I love anything that says Jim Henson on it.
I mean, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Evil, wrong people, maybe.
John Hurt. Yes, thank you, Michael.
Lots of static. I don't understand.
Lots of static. You can't hear us very well. It just could be my laptop. Sorry.
But yeah, I enjoyed the Storyteller show. I enjoyed the Storyteller. There's great art in those books too.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'll talk about. That's really cool. Something we'll talk about a lot as we go through the different independent comics of the week and of the conversation.
Yes.
Is that my turn, or do you have another thing handy? Okay. Like any good week, where I think that it is a small week for me, it suddenly becomes a big week. If you watch the Wednesday video, every Wednesday I post a live video where I show you a lot of the books that come out. And I really like to show you not just the Batman and Spider-Man stuff, but all the publishers and the different things that are out that week. One thing I talk a lot about is Dynamite and Red Sonja and Vampirella and the different things. Speaking of mashups, there's a Red Sonja book, a Vampirella book, there's a Red Sonja and Vampirella book, and there's a Red Sonja and Vampirella team up with characters like Betty and Veronica or Harley and Ivy and all like that. And so Dynamite does a fantastic job with these characters. And this week was a great example of that. As I turn around, show you a couple of photo covers. I would admit, sorry, Dynamite, you put too many covers on your books.
Oh my God.
I'm all for A
Enough
and B.
with the covers.
I'm not all for 8 different covers on a book. That's just ridiculous. 4
pages on Diamond's site for one issue.
And I appreciate that there's those guys out there that want all those covers. I appreciate that. But guys, buy other books. Buy different books. Again, I'm all for A and B. I'm all for these cool photo covers that they do, cosplay covers, because they give them atmosphere and they give them the costumes and the whole bit. And that's pretty awesome. Some are, anyway, point being, I like the art covers and people like the photo covers, but I really like the books. They do a great job with Red Sonja. If you like Conan, it's just barbarian action. One thing I've emphasized, these characters were not handled with the best of intentions during the 90s. There was a lot of cheesecake stuff going on in the 90s. And Dynamite has gone a long way to bringing these characters back to their original incarnations. Vampirella, yes, there's a lot of sexiness to Vampirella because that's the point of the book, but it's also a horror title and a sci-fi title, and it's awesome. Red Sonja is a total barbarian action comic, and they do a great job of it. And this was a good week to check out Red Sonja or Vampirella. And just because I'm on the topic of female characters that are awesome, it's also a great week to check out Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I also always talk about Buffy, even though that's not Dynamite. Boom does a great job with the Buffy and the Red Angel stuff.
You know, I read like 1 or 2 issues of the new Angel series. It's pretty freaking good. It is really good.
It is good.
Like, they're not pulling any punches on the horror and the graphic and the gooey. It is.
When they started the whole franchise over again, and so it allowed them to a little bit.
What's wrong with cheesecake? Oh, Jay.
Not a thing. And like I say, Vampirella, maintains a bit of that at the core because that's part of the core of the character, but they also give you more than that. In the 90s, they didn't give you more than that. Cheesecake's fine as long as you got some story and it should still have elements of all that stuff. But anyway, like I say, Dynamite does a great job with that. They're a really good independent publisher.
They do a great job with boobs.
You said it. And Boom does it. Like I say, the Buffy and Angel stuff's been really good. It has all the it was in my review this week. It has all the elements that you loved about the original Buffy stuff. It's funny and it's quirky and it's all these things, but it's also got it's a little edgier, it's a little more horror, it's a little more action, it's a little more a lot of things. So if you were a fan back in the day, it's time to come back. If you were never a fan, then it's all fresh and new to you. So that's really fun.
I am liking the Jay Lee covers. I will give him that. Jay Lee, nicest guy you'll ever meet. Emo mentioned that story a few weeks back, and I can second that when I met him. I love his art. It is so beautiful and unique, and it's, from a mile away that's Jay Lee.
That is very true.
Which is really hard to do in a crowded medium like this.
He is also, and I'm going way back, and then the one time I saw him, I dropped this on him to prove that I go way back. He did one thing I find absolutely impossible, which is to do the issue after John Byrne and still keep your reader. I always find a way to mention John Byrne. Yeah. He took over for Namor, and their art styles could not be more different. And anytime anybody, I don't care how good they are, anytime anybody took over for John Byrne, I was like, what's this? I hate this. But he took over Namor, and it was awesome. And I was like, who is this guy? And I've been following him now for like 30 years, because he's an amazing talent. Archaia is the publisher of Storyteller.
Yes.
And of the other Jim Henson properties that are not Muppet books.
We should talk about like the Secret Surprise Negan Lives book.
Ooh. Okay. Let's give this just a second of setup. Since Negan. Since this is an independent comic conversation.
It's pronounced
independent. Independent comics would not be what they are without Image Comics coming along in 1991, 92. Todd McFarlane and the rest of the gang. There had been independent comics. There had been self-published comics. There had been lots of comics for decades and decades. And we'll go into. There's been creator-owned stuff. All of the things that Image does. The Spirit. Will Eisner. Will Eisner did all the things that Image does 50 years before anybody at Image. Let's just put that out there. But 1991, everybody had forgotten that. And it was time to be reminded. And Image did that. And they gave us Spawn, and they gave us Max and Savage Dragon, and they gave us creator-owned titles that were awesome. And they established universes. They established a big third publisher. And gave us all variety and genre expansion and art style expansion, revolutionized the entire industry. So no conversation about independent comics can even begin without mentioning that Image made it for realsies. Image made independent comics a real thing.
And they withstood the time.
And all these years. And that's my build up to Walking Dead. It's one thing to look at Spawn and say that, he just parlayed his success of Amazing Spider-Man into a self-published thing, and okay, great.
What's wrong with that?
Not a thing in the world. And there are lots of other examples of success at Image. I don't want to take away from anybody, but I'm kind of moving ahead to Walking Dead, which at the time, I've said this forever. I ordered the book, and wasn't even on my radar until issue like 20. It was just some black and white horror book. Nobody cared. Nobody was gonna care. And so they just put it out there because that's what artists do. They create their work that they want to create, and they put it out there. Walking Dead #1 was just a comic book like any other comic book. And in fact, it was the essential independent because it was a black and white horror title, which is two things that don't sell in comics.
As far away from mainstream as you can get.
And now here we are with a massively popular TV show and 30-something trade paperbacks and best-selling title and blah 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 blah. Which brings us to the first new Walking Dead book that we've seen in a little while. Negan Lives, and this is, like I say, kind of the pinnacle of what independent comics are all about. There's no Batman in this book. There's no Wolverine in this book. There's no color in this book. And yet it's the biggest comic of the week. It's the biggest seller, might be one of the biggest books of the year.
So let's talk about the history of this book. So inspired by the comeback that Diamond's been promoting to help.
Fancy versions.
Gold
and silver.
So Walking Dead guy says, you know what, let's do something to help comic book shops. So unbeknownst to us, this book just showed up. We knew maybe a week in advance that it was coming, but we didn't order it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't pay for it. They just gave us a nice chunk of comics to sell, and they gave us and they gave us some really rare covers. So the silver cover and the gold cover, I guess, are super rare. You can look them up on Midtown, selling them for like $450 or something crazy, and we're not that expensive. So I thought that was just a really nice gesture to help support comic shops. You can't get these anywhere else, just local comic shops. And again, all proceeds go to help keeping us afloat. So I thought that was really great of them. So definitely, if you're a Walking Dead fan, we've got plenty on the website. Make sure you pick it up because I don't think we're going to have them in another week or so.
And like I say, I think that's what is the pinnacle of independent comics. Spawn 307 is that book. That is it starts just as because somebody wants to do it and it catches on and becomes a thing, and it's not at least initially mass produced and heavily advertised. It's just a comic.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate, even if I wasn't a retailer, I would very much appreciate all the different things that Image is doing to support comic shops. Because they know a lot of what I'm talking about. This is where the heart of independent comics come from.
Boy, Kirkman's just on fire. He also did this week too. This is the Free Comic Day edition. We have the trade. Oh, we did the trade.
This is the Prelude graphic novel that came out this week.
Free Comic Book Day.
And this is the Free Comic Day version. One thing I was talking to Michael about, everybody knows Robert Kirkman and Walking Dead and all these things that he does, and he's awesome and all those great things. And that name sells the books, and that's all great. Some people might not know the name Chris Samney, and I do because he's been doing Daredevil for a little while. He's got a few different Marvel books. He's just one of those guys that in my little world kind of came out of nowhere and grabbed my attention, and now I kind of follow him and look around for things he does. He's a really, really consistent artist, has great style. And again, like I was having a conversation with one of my guys, I kind of like the T+ sort of action adventure comic as opposed to, Kirkman likes to do the mature reader, heavy gore thing, which is great. That's awesome. But it's fun seeing him doing something
accessible to a younger audience.
Right, something back more like Invincible was. That's edgy without being, too over the top. I like things I can recommend to a broad audience.
We will talk about Comic Day at the end of the discussion.
Yes, or
because it's really complicated.
It is a little complicated this year.
Whew. So speaking of independence, so we've seen recently a resurgence. Well, it's not really resurgence.
Then it's just surgence.
Of new independent publishers with some kick-ass stuff. Out of nowhere, these AWA guys, Artist Writers Association, I think it's called, are coming out with these amazingly awesome books. This is just a prequel of what yeah, we've got the actual books. And
Keep
honestly,
talking, I'll just keep holding them up.
I keep wanting to grab one and read them, but we sell them before I even get a chance. So I can't really talk about them, but they look awesome. I can't keep them on the shelves. I've got this like preview that I'm going to take home and read through hopefully soon. I read a couple of pages of The Devil's Highway, which came out this week and we sold out of. We'll try to get more. Sorry. And I was immediately captivated. So the premise of Devil's Highway is what I can tell is there's some creepy, maybe serial killer truck driver guy and who happens to murder this diner owner. And then the daughter of the diner has to go and figure out who killed her dad. And that's all I've been able to get into so far. But I'm already like 5 pages in and totally captivated. What's the story? Who's the serial? Is it a serial killer? Did the lady escape? Did he re-kidnap her? I mean, it's just awful. And I love it. It's like right up my alley. Totally right up my alley. And all of them seem to have that same kind of like gritty, realistic horror type stuff going on.
Couldn't agree more. So one thing I love in comics is when I have absolutely no interest and no plan in getting involved in any way, shape, and form. And
he's non-committal.
And then 2 minutes later, I can't live without it. No, it's the reverse. I'm already overcommitted.
You're overcommitted.
Personally and professionally. And I'll take this. I'll start with professionally.
One wife is enough.
No,
one.
That's true, but that's not my point. My point is, as everybody knows, I'm a Marvel guy. I read 88 Marvel books, and then I read a bunch of DC. I read all the super books and Green Lantern and Justice League, and my dance card is full. And so I'm not looking to add anything, even stuff that's awesome. I'm just not. I can go on and on with I read Angel and I read all these things. On and on I can go. So I'm not trying to get into anything. I don't even check out stuff that I know I'll like because I just can't. And professionally, it's very similar. As the comic book guy, I'm already ordering all the Marvel and DC stuff, all the Dark Horse and Image stuff, all the IDW and Boom and Dynamite and Oni and all these things that we go on. And secondarily, you guys, my customer base, we always say we're the one-stop shop for all things superhero. We're a Marvel DC shop, and I don't make any bones about that. So I'm not looking to add more publishers. I'm not looking to add more titles to my shelves, to my website, all those kind of things. So if you're really smart and you're an independent publisher, you already know that. You know my dance card is full. So what you do is you send me a big pack of all your first issues.
Good one,
and you say, hey guys, check out my books. And if you like them, sell them to your customers. Because I get this big pack of free stuff. And again, I don't have time. I don't have interest. No, sorry, thanks, but no. But then the one right on top says J. Michael Straczynski and Mike Diodato. J. Michael Straczynski and Mike Diodato. You guys didn't say you had J. Michael Straczynski and guys like Mike Diodato. That's a different story. All right. I'll check out this one. Hey, wow. Well, of course, it's got great story and great art. It's Straczynski and Mike Diodato. Well, geez, if they got these guys and I love these guys, well, shoot, there's other books in this pack. I'm a superhero guy. I don't like the things she reads. I don't like being kept up at night. I like knowing that the hero's going to show up, and the hero never shows up in books like this.
Murder Mayhem.
But I read Hotel. And oh man, it was everything. If you love Twilight Zone, if you love old horror movies where the person walks off into the dark and all the scary screaming stuff happens in the dark and you don't know, this is your book. I love horror when it stays in my mind. Like I say, I had no intention of reading AWA, of carrying AWA, of talking about AWA. But every single time I pick up one of their books, I love it. And now Resistance is on my list because J. Michael Straczynski is one of my favorite guys. Hotel will be on my list once I can catch up with my orders because you guys buy them faster than I do.
Good stuff.
And to that point, and I know my man Jake is one of these guys, much like CrossGen back in the day, if you remember CrossGen, much like a lot of great publishers who do great work. people right out of the gate say, put all their titles on my list. I want to get all those number ones. Because when you're consistently good, people want to read your stuff. When you're an independent publisher, it's hugely important that you grab them out of the gate, that you have a lot of stuff for them to sink their teeth into.
Aftershock was like that too.
That's right where I was going after all this. So, folks, check out some AWA books. Go to the site, find those number ones. Or if we don't have them in stock, as the new issue comes the following week. We
have these. I'm going to put up more of these later, but Upshot now, I think, is like a preview version, like little samples of all of their titles. So if you want to check it out, we'll put this up on our website. I think issue 3 and 2 might be up there right now.
Again, this is what independent comics are all about. It's something a little different. It's an alternative to what's already out there. Companies know that you love Batman. DC's already giving you Batman. They're not going to improve on Batman, so they give you something different. And they give you a wide range of it. Which takes me to, you mentioned Aftershock, and then I'll shut up and give you a minute. But in fact, you talk about that one. I'll talk about this one.
Okay.
These were the guys that did it a little while ago. The flip side to being marketed to is when your customers, like my man Jake, like my man Cliff, tell me about a book, and they're like, "Oh, you got to read this book," and I'm like, Aftershock? I never heard of Aftershock. Well, Animosity is a great book, and everybody is loving it. So if you're not carrying Animosity, okay. So I order a copy and I read it. I'm like, wow, this is great. Great story, great art, perfect mix of sci-fi and horror and action adventure. Animosity is the story of animals becoming sentient. And when animals become sentient, they become very unhappy with the way they've been treated by human beings. Imagine that. And hijinks ensue. And so anyway, Aftershock totally sucked me in. I read Animosity. I was like, this is really great. And much like the AWA stuff, then the next book I saw was, thanks to Al for turning us on to that one.
I love this book.
Then Dark Arc came along. Why don't you tell them about Dark Arc?
So Dark Arc, I've talked about it before, so forgive me if this sounds redundant. Dark Arc is basically, think about Noah's Ark. And how about the devil saying, hey, what about all of my creatures? I don't want them to perish in the flood. So he gets a wizard a warlock to basically, round up all the demons, all the vampires, all of the monsters, and put it on its own specific arc called the Dark Arc. And so they ride out the flood together, and all kinds of crazy ensues. It's a fascinating, brilliant idea. I'm kind of jealous as a writer that I didn't think of something like that. And the art's really crazy. The pacing's really great. And now they're into a second phase called the After the Flood. So I don't want to give anything away, but we all know what happens at the end of Noah's Ark, right? He finds land. Spoiler. And so what happens now that they're on land? So it's really great. I highly recommend it. Here's the volume with the first, I think, 6 issues in it. I think we've got it on our site too.
I think the warlock starts a school.
He doesn't know.
And then the kid with the owl comes.
We got a question from Farhan about thoughts on Top Cow and Aspen.
Lots of thoughts. I'll take those in reverse order. And next week we'll be talking about conventions. I think we were joined by Steve. But one thing
We're gonna try. He doesn't know. He doesn't know yet.
But one thing I love to do at San Diego Comic-Con is go to the Aspen booth and thank the wonderful people at Aspen for keeping the legacy of Michael Turner not just alive but thriving. And they do a great job of maintaining everything that he started. And it's really, again, at the core of what we're talking about, what independent comics are. Michael Turner was a unique talent. And he was really, really popular. And rather than letting the big two just milk him, he got out there and started his own company and started his own titles and satisfied his fan base, not just cranking out art, but by creating characters and world building and doing all those things that great comic creators do. And his fans really latched onto that. And from the very beginning, we were selling lots of Soulfire and Fathom and lots of their stuff. And now, many, many years after he unfortunately passed away at far too young an age, Aspen still puts their books out and still maintains a high quality of story and art, and maintains that world building, and does all those great things.
They haven't done anything in a while, though.
Haven't seen got a new Soulfire not too long ago, but we haven't seen a Fathom in a while. But that first omnibus that you can pick up of either one of those is a great buy for just about anybody. Again, and certainly anybody interested in independent comics. So Aspen, I very much appreciate. Top Cow is a little similar. One thing people don't understand about Top Cow, like Witchblade, is a great example of one of the original Image books that still runs. Top Cow, how shall I say, is a real company. Top Cow is a collective of independent creators who built a universe and maintain it. And that's more difficult to do than it sounds. It's somewhat easy. I won't say it's easy. It's more feasible to be Eric Larson and to create a book and stay in your universe and your book, and I do this book, and it comes out 4 times a year, and this is what it is. But to do a book like that loosely interrelates with other creators and other titles, and keep that going for 20-something years is pretty impressive. And things, like I say, they've maintained their fan base, Wildcats, whatever you want to talk about, have done really well for a long time. Oh, that's Wildstorm, right?
I got you.
But like I say, what was Mark Silvestri the Top Cow guy? I forget which of the Image founders was the Top Cow guy. But like I say, they took the concept of Image and made a business out of it, which is a big thing. It gets lost in comics, is the business aspect.
Yes.
And honestly, on a somewhat of a side note, I would point out that, in my opinion, that's one of the things that differentiates independent comics. There are 2 kinds of independent publishers. One is the truly independent publisher, someone like like Archaia, or the creator owned, and they're small and they just do their thing, and it's for the art. It's another thing, and I'm not making this a bad thing. I'm just making a differentiation. There's another thing to be a competitor of one of the major publishers. Archie is not an independent comic book company, because Archie has been around for 80 years. Archie is an established universe. Archie employs many writers and artists, and all those. So Archie is another comic publisher. And I make the argument that Image is a little of both. It's hard to describe Spawn as an independent comic, even though it's creator owned and self-published. He also employs people like Greg Capullo. He does multiple covers. He has a movie. It very much competes with Spider-Man and competes with Batman. It's a major selling publication.
So is your argument that if it's successful and big, it's not independent?
No, my argument is the purpose of the book. If your purpose is to compete with the major market, if your purpose is to compete with Batman, if you want your book to be more popular than Batman, that's not necessarily, I guess by title, that's not the point I'm trying to make. As a publisher, I guess is the point I'm trying. If your intention is to compete with Marvel and DC, then you're an independent publisher, but that's not what you're wanting to be. You're wanting to be the 3rd or 4th big publisher. If your intention is just to put out comics to provide an alternative to what's already out there, I think that's what makes you an independent publisher.
I think independent for me means completely free of any strings or attachments from editorial, from some higher up saying, no, Spawn has to look like this, like completely free to create whatever you want without anyone telling you different.
Sure. And that's kind of, and there gets gray area for me. Like Hellboy, I think, is an excellent example. Because Mike Mignola dictates, Hellboy looks like this and Hellboy does that and goes like here and goes there. But he doesn't write or draw the book.
Yeah.
And so
I wouldn't say that was independent.
Well, that's what I mean. So it's creator owned, but it's not necessarily independent because he's not the one that works on the book. And that's kind of my thing with Spawn. It's creator owned, but he doesn't write or draw it. and so I don't know. Like I say, it like everything in
what
comics.
Do you guys think?
There's gray areas.
What's your definition of being independent?
So yeah, throw those out there. Independent publishers that you read, independent titles that you read. Like I say, I'm a huge Marvel guy, but this week I could talk about Dynamite books I read. I could talk about Boom books I read. I could talk about the Dark Horse and the Image books that I read.
Well, and one of the things I like to throw it out there is these Image First books for $1. So the reprints of all the #1s of some of their big titles. So there's Black Magic, Gideon Falls, Ice Cream Man, which I love. It's just like Crypt Keeper horror anthology. It's Isola, right?
Yep.
Isola. I don't know what that's about. Another Greg Rucka, Lazarus one. Of course, you got some Walking Dead, Image First. So if you're wanting to kind of tiptoe into the realm of, non-superhero, non-DC, non-Marvel, these Image First are a great kind of low-hanging fruit introduction to some of these books. If you don't like them, you're out $1. Big deal.
Yep. I really encourage everybody to check them out. I think it's a great feeder program. I really push my guys to pick them up, read them, and then pass them along to other folks. I also like to mention that DC Image discounts all of their first volume trades because they know you've already read the first issue. And that you've already, paid $1 for it.
Well, it's low entry.
Right. Right.
So yeah, for the most part, I think all of their volume 1s are $9.99.
And again, it's a great entry program. And Image is as I said, they're a great mix of both. They're a major publisher, but they're a combination. They're a collective of 1,000 little publishers. And if you love the mainstream stuff like I do, there's going to be Image books that appeal to you. And if you're looking for something outside the mainstream, there's going to be 1,000 Image books that appeal to you. They don't do enough, I guess, with the all ages stuff. If I had one complaint, I can't necessarily think of an all ages book that I recommend from the Image guys. But other than that, it seems they produce just about something for everybody. And so if you're getting into comics, or like I say, if you're just looking for something different from the other things that you're checking out, pick up one of these Image Firsts or go to Image. And as another thing I say in the Wednesday video all the time, this week it was All America Comics. It seems like there's a first issue Image title every single week. So whenever you see an Image #1, grab it, check it out.
You should share the story about the creator that came in for this book. Speaking of independence.
Well, it was a little like the AWA thing. You have to give me a reason. You have to give me a reason to carry your book. You have to give me a reason to push your book. I could just order more Batman. I can just order more X-Men. I don't need to go out on a limb. And that isn't a bad thing. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying my hands are full, my budget's full, my shelves are full, everything's full. I don't have room for your title. But if you come to my store and you have a copy of your book, and you're a nice person and you give me a fun pitch, then sure, then yeah, the flip side to all those cranky comic book guy things I said is that I'm a comic book guy. I want to support comics, I want to support artists, and I want variety in my store, and I want variety for my readers. But you gotta convince me. And so, like the AWA guys sending me a big pack of multiple issues for me to check out and talk up, this person, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their name now, and Shermer. Anyway, these fine folks who produced the title came into the store with copies of the book, cards and giveaways, little promo posters. Yeah. They gave me a quick pitch. Again, it's not like a super mature reader thing. Not that I have a problem with that, but just to say I can pitch it to a broader range of people. And so, it's on a publisher like Image. It's not a publisher that I'm not already carrying. It doesn't add much to my work to throw on a couple copies to my order. And it's a fun book.
Well, that's what you have to do as an independent. Even though your book is published with Image, you still have to do your own publicity. You have to do your own marketing for the most part. Like, it's up to you to sell the individual creators to sell and market their book?
Yes, this is the front end of a couple of things we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking to independent creators, and we've been talking about how they produce the work and where the inspiration, all those things come from. But at the end of the day, even if you're one of the top folks, and this doesn't happen, folks, even if you're lucky enough to get onto Image and be able to produce copies to take to your comic store, even that's not enough. Like she's saying, you still got to hand sell these things. You got to hand sell them to the stores. You got to hand sell them to your customers, all those things. Creative, independent comic people out there producing their own work.
Yes.
Number one, finish the work. Number two, produce an actual copy. Number three, get it into my hands so I can check it out for myself. And I can think, hey, my guy Jack will really like this book. My guy Fred will really like this book. Even if you're on a publisher like Image, that's what you got to do. You can't assume that once you get on Image that your book's going to sell like Spawn. Comics doesn't work that way.
So we've got a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions for us, now's the time. We will get to Duck's question in just a moment as part of our wrap up. So any questions of any kind, doesn't have to be about independence, could be about new this week stuff, could be about next week stuff, could be about Lunar distributors, whatever you guys want. So go ahead and populate the comments with your questions now, and then we can start talking about Free Comic Day.
Yes. Last little thought on today's topic. Check out more independent comics.
Yeah.
I'm a Marvel person. You're a Marvel person or a DC person. Read more independent comics. Go to those websites. Find those books.
Branch out.
Every single publisher out there produces a book that you would like to read. Every single one.
And they're really good. They're really great quality, and they could use our support.
The more you branch out, the more you'll find, the more you like, which is a big part of Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day. As we all know, this year has been
different? Challenging?
Yeah, challenging.
Crazy.
Plans have been changed for things like Free Comic Book Day, for things like San Diego Comic-Con, but we're all rolling with it. And we're not keeping a good thing like Free Comic Day down. We're turning it into Free Comic Book Day Summer, Free Comic Book Summer. Here at Black Cat and Rock and Milpitas, we're calling it Free Comic Book Sundays. So every week there's going to be 1, 2, 3 different Free Comic Day books. There's like a wacky schedule. There's going to be books coming out every week.
All the time.
All summer long. So when you book a curbside here at Black Hat Comics, and every store does it different, contact your local store, figure out how they're doing free comics. Here's how Black Hat Comics and Rock and Milpitas is doing Free Comic Book Day. Every week there will be different books. If you have a curbside pickup, or if you're getting your book shipped to you, you will have that week's Free Comic Day books automatically in your curbside pickup, you don't have to ask for or in your shipment. If you do not have a curbside scheduled, or you do not have a shipment scheduled, then you need to book a curbside for that Sunday and get your free books. If you do not have a subscription, if you do not make a purchase, if you just want your free books, book a curbside appointment for Sunday, and we'll have your free books out there for you.
Now, just to make things more confusing for you, we've got a different online calendar set up just for Free Comic Book Day. So if you go to the events page on our black-cat-comics.com site, you can book a Free Comic Book Day Sunday appointment. So we're doing those Sundays only for Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, so you don't have to purchase anything.
Nope.
Just book your curbside for Sunday, pick up your free comics. That's sort of the logistics. Do it. Do free comics. Get your free comics. If you're an established fan, get all your free comics. Even if you don't want them, get them and give them out to people. Give them to friends, family, people at work. Here at Black Cat Comics and Rock and Milpitas, we do the heck out of Free Comic Book Day for all of the reasons that one should.
We miss it this year.
We love Free Comic Day. We love seeing all the people. We love seeing the kids. But we love getting comics into the hands of people who will read them. Comics are about reading. It's an entertainment medium. And everything we're talking about today is what Free Comic Book Day is all about. New titles, new creators, new concepts, new fun and exciting. Please, please, please take advantage of Free Comic Book Day and make the most of it.
We'll put in our weekly newsletters what comes out that week. But if you want to get ahead of the game, if you go to freecomicbookday.com, you can see and click on comics, you can see the list of the schedule of what's supposed to ship when. So we'll get them on Wednesday, and so for that whole week, we'll have those free comics. Again, if you got curbside or an online order, you will automatically get it. If you don't have any orders that week, book a Sunday appointment, and we'll make sure that you get that. And if we've got leftovers from previous weeks, we'll add that to your stack on Sunday too. And we've got a ton of stuff. Like we got a ton of stuff that we're gonna secretly give to you as well. So we've got more than just the free comics that we're going to be giving away on Sundays.
So free comic book Sunday, free comic book Sunday, free comic book Sunday, all summer long.
Through, I think, September 9th or something.
All summer long.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future. And like I say, established fans, new fans, everybody, take advantage of Free Comic Book Day. Get those free comics, read those free comics. Don't just get the one from the publisher that you're already reading. Get all the different ones. Read all the different ones. You're not going to like everything, but one of them, 10 of them are going to surprise you, and you're going to get turned on to a new character, a new publisher,
Give them
a new
to
writer, a
people
new
in
artist.
your household.
And yes, spread them around. Spread the love. Comics, especially these days. And which brings me to another point. Every comic shop, every comic creator, every comic fan, every comic everything needs that support, needs that help right now. So yes, share those comics, but share the existence of Free Comic Book Day. Get on your social media and whatever,
hashtag
and let the people in New Jersey, let the people in Utah, let the people in East Mongolia know that there's Free Comic Book Day, and they can get free. I don't know if Mongolia is a place anymore, but the place formerly known as Mongolia also does Free Comic Book Day. So tell the world, tell everybody you know, because free comics, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, that is what it's all about. So we got a question about our comic. Our comic is comics are just kind of sitting, waiting for artists to draw them. So if you know somebody, or if you yourself are an artist that like to submit some samples, we're always looking for artists to help us with that. info@black-cat-comics.com. If you're into horror stuff, if you're into drawing black cats, you might be the artist that we're looking for. So shoot us an email, quick text, give us a jingle.
We're doing our best to become an independent publisher as well.
I've got scripts. I'm ready to go. I just need an artist. Emo, I'm looking at you. Yeah. And then do you want to talk about the virtual shopper experience again?
I do.
Michael got his question answered.
Marvelous. So, and that will answer this question. We're getting the question, so when are we going to open up to have people in the shop? And the short answer is not anytime soon. So we've got all kinds of other fun programs to keep you guys involved. Real quick, yes, I know things are opening up all over. Here in Santa Clara County, things are really bad still with the COVID.
They're getting worse.
Our numbers are going up. Things are still very restricted by county government and all that kind of thing. So we were given like a book like this thick with 1,000 things that we would need. And the very, very short answer of it is the square footage of the store only allows one person at a time. And so that doesn't really help us or you. Many of the things that you can do in the interim, and the one that I really want to talk about today, because I did one yesterday and it was a lot of fun.
You have to share that whole story because it's the greatest thing in the world. It's so fun.
So we offer virtual shopping experience. Basically, it's a Zoom meeting like this one, where you go to the homepage, you go to book your curbside, you can book a 15-minute virtual shopping experience the same way. And we send you the Zoom link, and then we hook up just like this, and you get 15 minutes of Black Cat Comics all to yourself.
Undivided time.
You get my undivided attention.
Ask any question you want.
And it isn't necessarily about me selling you stuff. It's me showing you things in the store that we don't have on the website, like all of these books behind me.
But he walks you through with the iPad. He walks you through the store.
It's about me showing
really
you,
fun.
the new release section. It's about asking me questions, or we can talk about comics. We can do whatever it is you want to do with those 15 minutes. And it's really great because it's you're not here in the store.
But you kind of are.
You're here in the store with your local comic book guy, and we're not being interrupted by anything else that's going on. Yesterday, I had
Cutest thing
an appointment
ever.
with a gal and her mom. Her mom comes on and sets it up, gives off the tablet to a gal who was probably about 10 years old. And she asked to see the all ages section. I take her down to the all ages section, and I'm showing her the books with the camera, and she's like, "Ooh, what's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's Donald Duck Frankenstein." "Ooh, I want Donald Duck Frankenstein." What do you have that's Scooby Doo? "Oh, here's Scooby Doo." She says, "What are these books down here?" And I'm showing her, I'm telling her all about Star Wars Adventures and the cool all ages Star Wars Adventures, and she lets me go on for a minute, and then she says, "I don't really like Star Wars." So anyway, it was really fun for her because it isn't little kid and old guy behind the counter. It's just two people talking comics, just like we're talking comics.
I thought that was a fascinating observation that you had about that, about being equal. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, just what I said, when a kid comes into the store, there's all kinds of barriers for a kid. There's height barriers. There's again, there's age barrier. There's I'm the adult and I'm the person in charge, and I'm
And he's tall.
Well,
he's advertising
to her, I'm
kid.
tall. And kids always have to they have to wait their turn, and they have to ask permission, and they have to do there's all kinds of rules when you're a kid. But in this scenario, she and I were equal, and there was I was not the authority, and I was not an old man, and I was not 3 feet taller than her. She was pushing me around and telling me what she wanted and how she wanted it. She got to be the adult in this situation. And I think she really enjoyed that. You might really enjoy that too.
And it's, the parents, I'm sure there's loads and loads of parents that are really apprehensive about taking their kids out of their homes right now. And so this is a great alternative. So they still get the experience, but in a safe environment.
And on a totally different level, my buddy Sean books appointments. We talk comics. We talk football. He's the one that helped me get the idea for Matchbox versus Hot Wheels
tomorrow
at 2 p.m. Live on Facebook. And hey, what's coming out next week? Hey, what's out that I'm not reading right now that you like? Just 15 minutes with the comic book guy. So no, we are not open, but you can at any time.
We are open, but just not for people to come into the store.
You can't physically come into the store, but you can have 15 minutes in the shop anytime you like. All the new material is up on the website every Wednesday. Yeah. So all the new books. And yes, we've done our darndest. We're still doing our darndest to get everything else we have in the store on the site as well. So the current issue and the previous issues and the trade paperback of whatever title that week is going to be right there on the site.
And if there's stuff you're looking for you don't see, let us know. We'll put it up.
Give us a jingle.
Easy.
So like I say, you can book your virtual shopping appointment, and we can hang out just like we're hanging out now.
Good times.
Or go to the site, book your curbside, come by and pick it up, order from the site. We'll ship it out to you. Tune in Saturdays. You hang out with us. You hang out with everybody else. We got Raymond. We got Michael. We got all our buddies here. We got all the cats and kittens here. So like I say, you can hang out with us one-on-one in a virtual shopping experience. You can hang out with us and the rest of the gang here every Saturday, 2 p.m. You can tune in Sunday at 2 p.m. for Matchbox versus Hot Wheels. And watch the live sporting event of 2020.
The only sporting event.
That's what makes it the sporting event of the year. So again, you can't physically come into the store, but we're bending over backwards to keep you here in the store anyway. Yeah. We've got you here Wednesday. We've got you here Saturday and Sunday. Throwing the hook out there that we're going to be doing these live auction shows that you're seeing popping up all over the place. Because I got a ton of old books that I just don't have time to get up on the site. So we're going to start doing, live auction show and so, like I say, we're having as much fun as we can possibly have. We're encouraging you to have as much fun as you can possibly have. If there's anything else we can do, then let us know, and we'll be happy to make that happen. As long as it doesn't involve policing masks or measuring square footage.
That's not
fun. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the support.
Are we putting new books on the shelves every week? So if we do a virtual tour, we can see what's all there. Yes, because well, we can take you into the back room, where we've got the new this week stuff on the back shelf. So we can absolutely do that for the virtual.
And that's another reason why people are booking the virtual, because here in the regular store, we don't have a current comic section anymore because we didn't have the space. But in the back we do, because that's where I do all the work. And so people want to see that new release shelf.
Now we do have, Michael, we do have on the online store, we do have a new this week section. So if you click on the new this week online, you will see everything, including the all ages books in the new this week section and last week's section. But if you wanted just a snapshot of what the shelf looks like, we can totally do that during the virtual shopper experience.
Yep, book that experience,
no problem.
And we'll do that up. So, like I say, we're doing our best to keep you connected to the comic book community, just like I said at the top of the show.
And happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. We know it's a tough year. It's a tough year for everybody. It's a tough year for America. I don't care what kind of American you are. Superman and Captain America are having a tough year, but you know, I'm still celebrating the 4th of July. It's still great to be here, and it's great to be here with all of you. Which brings us about to the end of our show. We hope that you're staying safe, staying sane, having fun out there. Tune in every Saturday, and then let's talk comics. Tune in Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. as I talk up all the new books for the week. Then tune in Saturday as we talk about all of those new books. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow, 2 p.m. for Matchbox versus Hot Wheels. Go to black-cat-comics.com and shop till you drop. Thanks to everybody who's been supporting us through all of this craziness. And have fun. Happy 4th. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.